Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm driving to meet a guy who's selling a whole bunch of second, third, and fourth gen Camaros, which I hope to buy. I hope to buy all of them actually, but unfortunately they're not real cars. These are Hot Wheels. You see, my son and I, we collect Hot Wheels, and I've got a nice display of second, third, and fourth gen, and even first gen Camaros in my garage, but I'm short on the fourth gens. There weren't a lot in my collection, so I'm actually driving my fourth gen right now to meet the guy. And while I'm doing this, I realize I've had a few cars over the years. I've had actually quite a few, to be honest, over the years. And I'd like to share with you all the cars I've had, whether they're good, they're bad, and tell a little story about them. So let's go back home once we pick these Hot Wheels up, and let's talk about all the cars I've had over the years and a little story behind each one. All right, now we're back home, and I bought all of them, and I'll show you guys at the end what I bought, but we'll go through all the cars I've owned, and we'll have a story about each one of them. So let's see, the first car. First car was a 1974 Mercury Capri. It was brown. I called it the Turd. It didn't run very well. I paid 75 bucks for it. So I played with the carburetor a little bit. I played with the timing a little bit. I got it to run. And then I took the brakes, the rotors and the drums into my school auto shop there, and I turned them because the brakes were horrible on the car. I ended up selling it to a buddy of mine for 150 bucks, John, and it probably sat in his yard rotting. You can see here it had a really weird airbox air cleaner assembly. It was kind of like a square thing. Really odd car. It was horrible. It wasn't the 4-speed V6. If it was, that would actually be probably a decent car, but anyways, that was my worst car. Second car, 1978 Firebird. It was blue. It was a really neat color blue, actually. It wasn't an Esprit model, I don't think, but it had the rally, 5-spoke rally wheels on it. It had a 305 in it. It was basically like the one in the picture here, but it had a spoiler on the back. It was a great car. I painted white stripes on the trunk and on the hood with house paint because I had no money. I put a glass pack on it, cut off the whole exhaust, and had a glass pack basically dumping out underneath the driver's seat. The interior was white. It was actually a pretty cool car. It was kind of like my first muscle car, but that 305 two-barrel had no power whatsoever. I ended up blowing up the engine, doing a massive brake stand at the end of grade 12. I brought a big jug of oil and bleach, and everybody was doing burnouts in the parking lot. And as I was leaving that burnout, I heard a nasty noise, and I ended up throwing a rod in the bottom end. Next car, 1976 Ford Cortina, similar to the one in the picture here. That's not my car. None of those were so far my actual car, but it was gray, real horrible car actually to drive. I think I paid 150 bucks for it. I had a ton of toggle switches, as you can see in the picture right here. I had never knew what those toggle switches did, and then the one thing I really remember about that car, other than it being really horrible and gutless, is the windshield washer fluid pump was on the floor. It was like this little, you know, rubber little pump that you used to step on, and that was absolutely hilarious. You can see a couple in the pictures here. A lady bought that car and decided to drive to Alberta. Good luck to her. The next car was another beater, a 1984 Hyundai Pony, or maybe it was an 85, I can't even remember. This one was a 5-speed. It was an interesting car. It kind of got me around a little bit. It looked just like the one in the pictures there. It was blue with those kind of weird kind of plus X sort of hubcaps. Odd car, honestly. I think the Hyundai Pony was actually based on the Dodge Cricket anyways, but introducing the new amazing new Pony isn't exactly new, but it is amazing. What a strange ad. The car had no rear brakes. I couldn't get rear brakes for it. They stopped making drums for it, and I actually worked at a brake warehouse, so I could not get brakes for it. The next car I had, which was really cool, 1968 Chevrolet Impala Fastback. It was yellow like this. Again, this isn't a picture of my actual car. It was yellow with a black roof. It was super rotten. I bought it for 75 bucks. And I always loved the taillights of these cars, or the back end. 75 bucks, it had no motor in it. I could get in the trunk and close the trunk and get out underneath the car because it was so rotten. But me and a buddy, we welded on that thing, we built that thing, worked on that thing, fixed all the rust, put a bunch of carpet from basically a house carpet in the car. Wow, it was a cruiser. I put Baby Moon hubcaps on it, and I built a pretty good 350 small block for it. We're going to again see a picture of the taillights here. Just love the back end of these cars. I built up a 350 small block for it. It was probably around, I don't know, 300 horsepower. It had a really huge cam, 882 heads, open chamber heads. You're gonna see a picture of the engine coming up right now. Of course, this is in another car, but this is a small block I built up. It had a high-rise intake manifold, a Holley 650 double pumper. The car had a turbo 400 and 273 rear gears, so really interesting combination. But that car ended up breaking, and rust was the cause, and then I needed a donor car, which is the next car right here, which is a 1983 Firebird. I bought this on a whim. I wanted to transfer the engine from the 68 Chevy into something, so I found this car for, I think it was like 600, 700 bucks. Again, this is a picture of a similar car that I had. And as I was working through this, I realized that maybe it wasn't the right choice. It did have a V6, and the V6 would run, but the V6 would lose all of its oil, so I think it may have had a crack block or something like that. But I ended up trying to get it running a little bit to sell, and I couldn't get it running properly, couldn't get the oil to stop leaking, so I got rid of it to somebody else, and then I bought the next car. Again, this is a picture of it, a 1976 Pontiac Trans Am. This was to be the donor for that 350 that I had in my 68 Impala. This car had a 400 in it, or a 6.6. That engine was through a rod as well, or spun a bottom end bearing, and it was knocking like hell, but I did bring that car home. It was white like this. It was a hard top. I believe it had a turbo 400. My goal was, well, I'm gonna transplant that 350 in there, but I realized there's too much Pontiac difference from Chevy, so I ended up not doing the swap into that car, and I ended up selling that car as well to a guy who wanted something to restore. All the parts were there. I mean, the engine needed to be rebuilt. It had a nice black interior in there. There was all the trim pieces there. So if you're restoring a car, and these cars were now getting desirable, it would be something to do than find something that was missing all its parts. So some guy wanted this car badly, and I basically, after getting half the engine taken apart, I basically threw all the parts back together and sold it to him. I don't know if he ever restored it, but it'd be a cool car. One of the cars that I wish I kept was this 76 Trans Am. But the next car I bought was the car which I still have today, which was my 1981 Camaro Z28. It was just like the one in the picture, because it is the one in the picture. It had the Craggar wheels. Here's the engine that I built for it. I put N90s back on it because I liked the original look. I had a big 3-inch exhaust on the car. It ran pretty good. I used to drag race it, and then I started getting into some of the rust repair, as you can see here. The tail panel on these cars are horrible, so I replaced the tail panel, put some huge exhaust and some gears in it, did some suspension, did some stereo work, and then I built an LS for it. So I got a 6-liter out of a junkyard, and here's the build process, studding the bottom end here. Here's the crank installed, and the pistons are everything installed right now. So I built that 6-liter, it's a standard bore, put it in the car. I ran it originally with some homemade headers, and it was carbureted. Here's a 650 double pumper that I built for that car as well. It didn't really work very well for whatever reason, so I ended up buying another carburetor, which you'll see coming up here. But it ran pretty good. There's the new carburetor. It was a 750 HP double pumper. And yeah, it ran pretty good. And then I decided, well, the reason why I bought a newer engine was to go fuel injection. I wanted better fuel economy. I wanted better performance instead of just the wide open performance that I was getting. So I put the fuel injection on there, got a PCM and everything, and here's what happened. Put some brand new exhaust on the car. And yeah, it is basically, I still own that thing. I love this car. It's got a 6-speed swap in it now. And here's a picture just down at the beach once the suspension is all done. And of course, I autocross this car once in a while. I'd like to do that again in the coming year. Here's a little bit of an autocross video of it. As you can see, running the cones as I speak. It's not super fast. Did some drag racing with it. Eventually got it into the low 12s. I ran a 12.2 at 110. Of course, this is still with the automatic and some drag radials on it. And of course, it's got a 6-speed in it now, and it drives way better. The next car I bought, a commuter, a 1995 Dodge Neon. Now Dodge Neons had a couple different engine options at the time. This is the Sport Coupe, so it actually had the available 150 horse 2-liter 16 valve. So I got the big motor Dodge Neon, and it was a decent car. It was kind of fun, but it just wasn't my thing because I'd had so many kind of Camaros and Firebirds and kind of muscle cars before that. This is basically exactly what it looks like. It wasn't my car again. I don't have any pictures of this, but it looks like that. Basically had the same wheels on it, and it was a decent car. A good buddy of mine had the other one with the 132 horsepower engine, and it just wasn't as fast. You can see the 150 horse models had the twin exhaust tips on the back. That was another dead giveaway for the big motor Dodge Neon, but eventually the Neon, after driving it for about a year or so, just wasn't my style. So I traded it on, and here's my exact old car, my 1994 Z28. And this was a base model Z28. It was a hard top cloth seat automatic. So my thought was lightweight, and I was gonna go drag racing on it. I put these 5-star Trans Am wheels on it, and I did a shift kit, a 2500 converter, and some Flowmaster exhaust. And it ran okay, but it had 273 gears, which was really the biggest issue. I went through a couple automatic transmissions because I realized that the 4L60E that was in these cars didn't like much modification whatsoever, and it didn't like downshifting. I used to always downshift this thing into first gear and floor it. I think the automatic really liked to upshift more. It had, there you go, the cloth tan interior in that car. And it was a fun car. I drove that daily for around 3 years. I went to college in that, technical college in that, and it was powered by the LT1. There's the engine there. You can see my cold air intake set up using some black sort of dryer ducting. Man, I was broke. I didn't have a lot of money. I paid every cent into just keeping that car on the road, but it was a great car. But I traded it eventually because I was sick of the transmissions failing on it for this, my 1995 Z28 convertible. This one was a 6-speed car. You can see I have the same Trans Am wheels. When I traded in my green 94, I actually had them swap these over. This car was a lot nicer with the 6-speed. I have it in a car show right here in a local town, and I polished it up. It did pretty good. Had the tan leather interior. And this car was modified fairly good. I mean, it had Flowmaster exhaust, it had Arizona Speed Marine 1 3/4 inch mid-length headers, no catalytic converter, sounded pretty loud. The suspension was all done. It had LG Motorsports G2 Super Springs and Bilstein shocks that were valved to those springs. Really good combination. Did autocross this car for a little while. Yeah, it was an awesome car, and I thought I'm never ever gonna sell this car ever, but I ended up selling it because that house in the picture was one we were renting, and we wanted to move into something. So I bought my first house with the proceeds from the sale of this car. I think I paid $14,500 for it and sold it for $10,500 5 years later. Not bad. So after a while in the new house, I needed something else, and I bought this Saab 92X Aero. It's basically a WRX with a Saab front end. It had Rota SDR wheels on it with AO32 Yokohama tires, and this car I did autocross quite a bit more than the convertible that you just saw. There's me and my wife in the front seat there going for a ride. It had a access port, Cobb access port stage 1, and some sway bars in it, and with those tires, it was a pretty good autocross car. You're going to see it here. It was a bullet off the line. I ended up trading it for my 2002 Camaro SS. C number 429 on the Canadian or the Maple Leaf Camaros. This car was gorgeous. It was a 345 horse car with the chrome ZR1 wheels, and it had the 35th anniversary embroidered headrests and the two-tone seats. Most of those seats were put in cars that were red with the checkered flag sort of stripes on the hood. I autocrossed this car extensively. You're going to see some footage right now. Me getting ready to go. The car had Sam Strano full suspension on it, his springs in it, his sway bars in it, Connie Yellow single adjustables, and Hoosier A6 tires on it. And the car was pretty good in ESP. I was actually probably the fastest ESP guy in our local region out here, and did pretty good in the autocross. I loved modifying this car and driving it. Didn't touch the power. I mean, the engine, it had the 345 horse. It was good enough. It was all about handling in my mind. And I did a lot of autocross with this car, and then I ended up doing a little bit of Time Attack. I got my Time Attack license, and you'll see a picture of me coming up right now. Here we are, all dressed up, ready to go. I did some Time Attack with it, and the next picture is kind of showing some of the Time Attack numbering I was putting on the car, checking it out. There's a 4-point roll bar that went in it. Man, I cut that car up. I should never have done that. And here's a little video of that car doing some Time Attack, chasing my buddy John there. Chasing him, I could never quite catch him, but he was a better driver. And he had a more modified car. Mine was basically a street car with a roll bar and some tires on it. But eventually that car ended up going as well, because we ended up moving. But in the meantime, I bought a Jeep, 96 Jeep Grand Cherokee. It was purple, and that's the actual truck right there, or the SUV. Nice, clean little truck. I paid $3 grand for it, I believe. Really good condition. I ended up driving it to work, back and forth, and I ended up doing a little bit of wheeling with it. Wasn't a big four-wheeler, but I did a little bit with this truck. You'll see the purple interior coming up. There it is. It was really quite clean for $3 grand. It had 240,000 kilometers on the truck, actually. I think I stapled the area on the door panel above the head armrest, though. That was kind of interesting. Had the 4-liter high output. Good engine, really strong, really torquey. Ran like a top. I think those engines run forever, honestly. Those are really reliable engines, and yeah, I like to do a little bit of wheeling with it. It was completely stock, even had stock light truck BFG Long Trail TAs on there, or whatever they were, and yeah, there's crossing some water, and I kind of pushed it to the limits in terms of stock suspension, stock kind of tires. Here I am negotiating down quite the grade there, trying to figure out how to get in safely down this grade here, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I ended up selling it though, because I just wasn't, the biggest Jeep guy in the world, and I wanted to get into something else. And also, we were looking at moving again, so I was selling off some of the vehicles that I had. So the next thing I bought was a really cheap 1997 Saturn SC2 Coupe. So this car came up for sale for like $1,000, and I drove this for quite a while, back and forth to work. I had a fairly long commute. It was a 5-speed manual, and all I did was chuck some cheap tires on it. This thing was really good on fuel. It got like 40 plus miles per gallon. It was really geared quite high, I guess you would call it, and the RPM in like 5th gear was super low. Here's the interior shot of my actual car. Steering wheel was always crooked, needed an alignment. I never touched it, just drove it. Funny story, I had it up for sale for $1,000. A lady from the United States, so I live right near the Canada-US border. A lady from the United States came and met me up here in 5 minutes from the border, said she wanted to buy it, gave me $800 US, which was almost more than what I was asking in Canadian. And she didn't know how to drive standard, so I taught her how to drive standard in a parking lot 5 minutes from the border, and off she went. And the next vehicle up after that Saturn was a 2000, and I think it was a 12 Jeep Wrangler 2-door hardtop sport. It was black, just like this one. 6-speed manual with a hardtop and air conditioning. It was a good little vehicle. I was intending to keep this. I bought it brand new. They're like $20,000 brand new. So I spec'd it out that way, and I had it shipped to my local dealership from up north. And it had the brand new interior, which I really liked in it, which was a lot better than the old interior, which you can see here. But it had the 3.8, which was the old engine. So I really wish I would have waited a year on this. But to get the 3.6 was like 285 horsepower versus the 202 of the 3.8. But I ended up trading it anyway, so it doesn't matter, because I bought this 2011 Ram 1500 with the Hemi. This was a pretty low option truck. It was an SLT. I bought it because it was at the top of my price range. It was around 40K. And I wanted to do some towing with it. I wanted to get into towing another race car of sorts, because I just sold that 2002 Camaro, and I still had the racing bug. But we never ended up towing my own race car. I towed a buddy's. We had his BMW on the back. You can see here, went down to the Packwood National Tour in Packwood, Washington, did some autocross with it. It towed fantastic. I mean, that car was super light, but it towed fantastic. And yeah, it was a great truck. But again, we were still in our townhouse at the time, our first house, and I wanted to move into something bigger. Our son was born, and we ended up selling it. So I ended up selling that one, and I bought this 2013 Chevy Traverse, which was a lot better on fuel, and it was a lot better for hauling the baby around, and it was a lot smaller and easier to park. So yeah, we bought that vehicle. Sad story with that SUV there is someone T-boned us on Christmas Day 2017, and that was a complete write-off. So that vehicle, I may have still had it. It was really good, but it was taken from us. Someone T-boned us, so we moved on. I replaced it with something, but in the meantime, I bought another beater that was a little bit more autocross friendly. This was a 2002 Nissan SER Spec V, 6-speed manual. There you go, you can see me autocrossing it right there. It was pretty fun. It had a factory limited slip front diff. This thing had coilovers on and a header on it. You got to put a header on these 2.5 engines or else they'll blow up. And then we got the 2007 Chevy Avalanche LTZ, which I still own today. Now this is one of my favorite vehicles, or one of the best vehicles I've ever owned. It is one of my favorite. I love this truck. It has been flawless. It has never ever left us stranded. We've gone all over the place in this truck, and it is the daily for my family, for my wife. And yeah, I bought this truck. I think I paid 15,000 cash with 100K on it. Kilometers, that's like 60,000 miles, and it's got well over double that now, and it's never left me stranded. All right, the next vehicle, I decided I was gonna buy something brand new, so I bought a 2016 and a half Chevy Cruze RS. It was blue, just like the one in the pictures here, except it wasn't a Premier, which this one is, the pictures here. I don't know why I don't have any pictures of that. I did autocross that car as well. It wasn't actually that bad. I think it was an H-stock car. Now it's called H-Street. Yeah, it was a 6-speed manual. I had to actually source that at another dealership and have them bring them up to my local dealership as well, because I wanted that 6-speed manual. Had a great interior. It was a really comfortable car, super good on gas because I was driving a long distance from work. A lot of people had problems with the Chevy Cruze of this generation, blowing up engines. Mine was flawless. Don't ask me why, it just was. But I ended up trading that, and I traded that in for the car I still own today, which is my 2018 Camaro 2SS 1LE. This car is absolutely amazing. It is a great autocross car, and you're gonna see some autocross footage of it coming up here. Pretty competitive car for autocross, doesn't need much work. Yeah, it's just great right out of the box. But it's not really an autocross car. In my opinion, it's more of a road course car. HBDE car, you know, track day car. So that's what I do with this car mostly now. I kind of retired it from autocross. I do Area 27, which is a local track. I do that with a bunch of buddies and stuff. The car is really, really good. Like, it is really fast. Way better than me. I do have experience time attack. I do have experience autocross, but the car is so capable. I'm still trying to find that limit of performance there, and it's more basically me. So that car is an awesome car. It is modified. It does have, you'll see a little footage on the dyno. It is modified with a cold air intake, and it's on E85, and the car makes about 460 on the tire and about 480 wheel torque. So it is really an awesome car. Daily drive that car, or I did daily drive that car for quite some time. But it was time to retire it, and that's my latest vehicle here is the 1997 Camaro V6 base model T-top car. I bought this, or I got this for basically trading a case of beer. The reason I have it was because it was at a farm that my son's good friend lives at, and his dad couldn't get it running, so I got it running. Case of beer was a good price to pay, and there's lots of videos on my channel of me playing around with this thing, and now I daily drive it, and I daily drive it about 60 miles or 100 kilometers every single day. It's been flawless for a couple months now, and yeah, I'll probably keep driving that one for quite a while because it's a 4th gen, and as you saw, I have a lot of Camaros and 4th gens, and it kind of makes me feel, you know, like I'm back to my roots, and parts are dirt cheap. All right, and here are all the Camaros that I bought. You can see all these 2nd gens here, 1970 Camaros. There's a couple Hotchkiss cars here. I think these are pretty old, pretty collectible. I got a late second in 1981. I've never seen that one before, so that's another one for the collection. Some nice third gen examples here, different colors. I love the blue with the blue ground effect here. And then here are the fourth gens, which I didn't have any of. The two convertible fourth gens here, 95s. Awesome. All right, well, that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you saw any vehicles in that list that you also own, put a comment down below. I'd like to hear from you. What was your experience with that vehicle? Was it good? Was it bad? Definitely the first few I had were really, really bad. But yeah, that's what your first car usually is. It's usually a piece of crap. So that's what I had for the first car. And I'm kind of driving a piece of crap now with my latest car. But hey, sometimes you kind of go back to your roots. I'm a fourth gen guy and a Camaro guy and an F-body guy. So take care. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.